Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe. Hello, podsters. As this week, the unbearable weight of massive talent movie is out, we thought we'll do an episode on Nicolas Cage films. And this week, we have guests again, people. This is amazing. 2 episodes in a row, we have guests. This week, we have guests from the Culture Bucket podcast. Hello, George. How are you?
Hi there, Martin. I'm good, thank you.
Whoop, whoop. Good.
Thanks for the hype.
And as always, I am joined by a man. When he enters a room,
he clears the room.
He is always known as the Cling Can King of the Rim Ram Room. It's the Boaz Dix.
Yep.
How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine, man.
Good, good.
Doing a lot of rim ramming.
Shall we go with our pick first, Boaz?
Yeah, let's do that. Get your jars of whiskey ready.
Yeah.
Get on your cars to Las Vegas.
As the last couple of weeks, I basically chose the film for us. You didn't really have a choice, so I thought, you know what, I'll let Boaz have a go for Nick Cage film. So what did we pick, Boaz, for Nick Cage films?
I picked Leaving Las Vegas, or as its alternate title is The Drunk and the Hooker, which I made up, but you can have that. Okay. But so I picked this film. I sort of picked it, I suppose, at random. I think it was kind of just the fact that he picked The Rock, and there are quite a lot of like fun Nick Cage films, which are either kind of actiony, hilarious, or unintentionally hilarious. And I thought I would just go completely the opposite direction, just completely the opposite mood.
Okay.
For contrast, and just have literally like the most bleak, one of the most bleak films I've seen him in. So so that's why I just immediately just went to it. I was like, yeah, Leaving Las Vegas. He's like a suicidal drunk. Yeah, fuck me. That'll do. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if he's made a bleaker movie, has he?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. This is really like out of his element. Yeah, he's not really does stuff this sad.
So what happens in Leaving Las Vegas, Boaz?
So Leaving Las Vegas is a story about a guy called Ben Sanderson, played by Nicolas Cage. He is a screenwriter in Hollywood and stuff. He's got really bad alcoholism, so he's always drunk.
Yeah. Like
really drunk. I think he's got more liquor in his blood than blood in his blood.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he kind of loses everything. He gets, he's lost all of his friends. Nobody really wants anything to do with him. Lost his wife. He has a kid, I think you see in one of his photographs. Just loses his job. And so he's like, yeah, screw this. I'm going to Las Vegas. And he's cashed all out his money in cash. And he's going to just blow it on booze and drink himself to death. On that happy note, he meets a fellow wandering soul, a prostitute. Yeah, she's in a really bad way, and they just kind of just hang out, really, for a couple of weeks, sort of fall in love. But they kind of agree that they won't get in each other's way. They won't ask each other to stop what they're doing, even though they both know they're on a path of self-destruction.
Cool. What did you make of this one then, George?
I hadn't seen this since I was probably I went through a phase when I was about 18 of being like, Nicolas Cage is the world's greatest living actor. I, of course, have to watch every movie he's ever made, which I still haven't succeeded in doing because he's made a lot of movies.
Yeah.
But I did watch this, and I barely remembered it, so I sat down the other day to watch it. To me, it feels like one of those sort of classic films where it comes out and it wins Best Actor for an actor in it, but the rest of the film isn't necessarily overly memorable. In particular, if we're talking about directing first, in particular, the directing I thought was let's say interesting. Make some interesting choices throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And by the last 20 minutes, I was like, okay, I get it. Probably going to die. He's very, very drunk. She's very, very sad. Let's go. But it is, he is stunningly good in it, and like deservedly wins an Oscar for his role in it. From the very opening, like it opens with him in the supermarket, doesn't it? With the trolley full of booze, and he's just kind of dancing down the aisle. And from that moment, he's got your attention.
Yeah, it's very much a mood piece and a character study of both these characters, with Elizabeth Shue, who plays Sarah. As you said in the plot, Boaz, it's very much these two characters that are hopeless and don't want any hope, more importantly. They just Nick just wants to kill himself, but there's just this sense from the audience as well that you want him to live and keep going, but he's very serious from the start of the fact that matter of fact that I'm going to kill myself. You don't really believe him as you're watching the film, but because there's could be a chance, but there just never is, and it's just like, it's just very, very upsetting. So directing then, I liked the little sequence where Nick Cage is at a strip club, and it's intercut with a stripper, and all you hear is this quite intense jazz music. Then the music cuts out when something might have happened in his pants. I'm not sure. I'm not going to speculate. But then the sound of music slowly comes back, and he meets this hooker in a car, and the music is more dominant than the dialogue, just like you're in Nick Cage's head. You hear his dialogue more clearly later on, but the scene goes into slow-mo as the girl is sucking his finger. Then all you hear is the fridge as he wakes up in his apartment, and then the very clear clinks of his ring in the hooker's mouth as he remembers what happened. It's just great sound design for you to get inside Nick Cage's head as he's a big old drunk.
There are some kind of interesting choices that I've never sort of seen before. I thought one was quite bizarre. When he was standing up for that girl at the bar, and her boyfriend headbutts him, and you see this incredibly close shot of a neon sign. It looks like a Hollywood neon sign. It's so brief, with I don't know. It's just loads of color. I'm not sure if it was meant to be an explosion, but it's really, really fucking close. And that kind of just goes off, and then he's on the floor. I was like, "What the hell was that?" That was odd. I don't know if it was it was just a strange artistic choice. But,
Did you feel at all that because you mentioned that neon light, and there's a scene, the first scene where he brings Sarah back to his hotel room, and the light in the bathroom is flickering on and off, and I felt like there was a lot in the direction of this movie that was sort of aping or trying to work in the style of David Lynch. Did you have that feeling at all, or did you see that? And especially with the kind of overbearing jazzy soundtrack as well.
A lot of jazz in this movie.
A lot.
I agree. There's just a lot of occasions where the music seems more important to Mike Figgis, the director, than dialogue at times. It's very much a mood piece and a character study. At moments, he uses music to express the emotions of these characters more than dialogue, which is a really, really interesting choice. So you don't see that very often at all. And one part where this is very prominent is when there's a great shot where Ben completely freaks out at a blackjack table in a casino.
Yeah, I quite like that.
And he throws the table over, and there's security all over him, and it's incredible acting, but you can't hear the dialogue clearly. You certainly can't hear what the waitress said to him to make Ben freak out. Probably that she asked him to stop drinking, I guess. It's just a really interesting choice from Mike Figgis, that he focuses more on music than the dialogue again. And then we go into a scene where Ben is getting the shakes, and he's trying to drink from the fridge, and it's the sounds and the music are sort of flowing in and out of each other. Some moments, the sound effects are louder than others. Other times, it's the music that's louder, until the music becomes more dominant when Sarah's asking him to come to bed. Plus, there's moments of just black screen that fades in and out, he himself is having blackouts, and that fact that he could be at the fridge and the sink for a long, long time before he goes to bed, it's I quite like that scene.
But yeah. I mean, talking about usage of the soundtrack in the film, do you remember that scene where basically his life is going to shit? I think when he gets fired and all this stuff is happening, and it's doing these cuts of him, buying more alcohol and clearing out and doing all kinds of stuff. He's screaming in the car, but it's everything in the action, it's just like the soundtrack is over all the environmental noises and stuff like that. It's very much sort of the noise sort of bleeds out, and it's just the music over this. And I like, he's screaming in the car, but it's just trumpets and stuff.
Yeah. Did you notice during the and one bit of direction that I liked quite a bit was that there's no title card until about 16 minutes in when he decides to go to Las Vegas is when it's suddenly like, right, well, here are the titles, leaving Las Vegas. During those helicopter shots of like the Vegas skyline, he's left in the sound of the helicopter blades. Almost, I don't know, to bring you as an audience member above because that would be normally taken out, wouldn't it? He's made a choice there to leave that in, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I never noticed that until you said that, actually. I'm like, oh yeah, there is helicopter noises.
And they sort of fade in and out, so it's not just left, he's kind of intentionally, he's definitely trying to do something. I'll give him that.
I feel like Mike Figgis has gone to the sound mixer and just say, go nuts, do what you want. A little bit. Just have a softly approach to the sound mix, and no hard fades in and out or anything. Nice and soft, please, sir. I think one of my favourite shots in the film is actually a really sexy shot of Elizabeth Shue where she's just sitting in a chair and just watching Ben sleep on a sofa. On her sofa as he wakes up. She's just wearing a shirt, not a fancy dress or anything. The shot starts on her chest and slowly tilts up, moves up her unbuttoned shirt to her face. It's brilliantly backlit as well. She looks beautiful in that shot, and in a film where the sex scenes are really, really horrible to watch. I quite like that shot. It's certainly when they're just lounging around in that hotel room, that's when they look their nicest. They look she looks sexy in that shot, and whereas in a lot of the other shots of Elizabeth Shue, it's very sleazy and
pretty grimy.
Yeah.
She's pretty, like you say, like a lot of the time, or any kind of sex is removed from the shots of her because it is just all so unpleasant and grimy. But one interesting thing I felt about her in particular was throughout the film, we see her talking to someone off screen about how she feels about Ben and how she feels about what's going on, and kind of a bit of an inner monologue. Do you know where all those shots came from?
No.
Because I find this fact, because the first time you see it, she says something about how she feels about Ben. Then it suddenly cuts into a discussion she's having with Julian Sands as if it's part of that scene.
Yeah.
But the first time you see she's wearing completely different clothes. And it is all of her wardrobe and makeup tests that for some reason Mike Figgis decided to put into the movie. Because I think it felt like it kind of gave you an inner monologue and a kind of an idea of her character that wasn't there throughout what they shot for the film. But it's oddly jarring at times as well. It's a really fascinating choice, but gives you much more Elizabeth Shue, which I think she's amazing in this.
Did you like that choice?
I think sometimes it works. Sometimes, like that first scene where it cuts and she's got completely different hair, and he's tried almost like he's trying to stitch together two different things in quite a, I don't know, almost amateurish way, it felt like, was odd. But then as the rest of the film goes on, and like you say, it is a bit of a mood piece and a character study, I think it fits, but it is interesting. I mean, she was Oscar nominated for her wardrobe tests ultimately, so well done her, because I don't imagine she thought that was going to be in the final film.
I didn't like those opening, interview things that she was doing to camera. Well, it wasn't really to camera, was it? It was like she was talking to a psychiatrist or whatever. I wasn't a huge fan of that because it felt to me like they were just talking about what's happening in the film. I'm like, well, you can just act it out, just show us what's going on, rather than her telling us.
That's a good point.
Retrospectively. So it did annoy me a little bit. But then, in the second half of the film, it doesn't happen. You don't have that anymore until the last scene where she says that she loves him. I quite liked that last one. I thought that was really great. But I think that last scene doesn't really work without the first scenes as well. So, I didn't like the first ones, but I loved the last one. So, And I get the sense as well that this is obviously adapted from a book. And sometimes I think filmmakers are I haven't read the book, but obviously this is very first person, I guess, view in this story, and you've got to have some sort of internal monologue in there somewhere in the film, but you don't necessarily have to do that when you're adapting a book. But
interesting choice as well that it's Sarah's internal monologue that we hear so much of, and nothing of
Yeah.
Ben. Like, even though he's the lead character, I feel like the film keeps a distance from Nicolas Cage and focuses. Once Sarah comes into it, she's kind of becomes the focus of the movie, or the audience view at least.
The rape scene is pretty horrible to watch as it develops with these college kids. But when they cut to the next scene, as they're about to rape her, you're quite relieved. When they cut away to a next scene, you're quite relieved. But then you see like the bruises on her face are slowly revealed. But then have to watch this very like frustrating cab driver just assume she's a prostitute and worried if she can pay the cab fare or not. But then she gets in the shower and sits down into a ball crying. And then you get like brief flashbacks of the rape when you thought you weren't going to see it. I like the fact that you see it because the rape does feel brutal and it's like she can't shake what's just happened to her, and it feels more real that she's having flashbacks of the rape, you know?
Well, it just it's a visual representation of this never-ending trauma. This is going to haunt her.
Yeah.
This is haunting her right now. This is not, something that's going to be forgotten. This is deeply affecting her.
Yeah, I just quite like the fact that they don't like show it all in one scene. Like you just show the start and then like it's all kind of fragmented in flashbacks. It just felt more real to me and more impactful psychologically for the character.
Well, I also kind of like when it comes to camera work and stuff and just how some scenes are framed. You can definitely tell they're obviously worried about each other. And there are many scenes where they do want to tell each other to just cut this shit out. One which is, where he's so drunk and then he goes into the bedroom with her. I think this is after they've been kicked out of the casino. And he was like, what the hell happened after we got kicked? Because I can't remember. And she was like, yeah, we got kicked out of the casino and we can't go anywhere again. We can't go there again. And you could tell she's very, very worried about him. And then she turns on her back, so she's comforting him, and then turns on her back, and she's got like a gash on her back, and he kind of touches it with his hand. The camera sees it trail it with his hand. And you can see he's very obviously concerned, and she's like, I'm working tonight. He's like, oh, yeah, I know, just kind of drops it. But you could say they never mention it. I like that scene because it's like they are confronted with the reality of their self-destructive behavior, and they both love each other. And they feel like they just, each of them could almost say, just don't do it. Just don't do it tonight. But neither of them do that. I think ultimately they're both incredibly lonely characters, and that's probably because everybody's left them because they couldn't be helped.
And don't want help either.
Yeah. But it's kind of strange because they want to help each other because that's what you would naturally want to do. But, they don't want help and they want to help each other though. But, they decide not to.
There's almost no other characters in the movie that Nicolas Cage speaks to that doesn't find him disgusting, is there? Like, she's the only person that accepts him. My favourite scene is the first scene where Ben and Sarah go back to his hotel room and sort of connect together, because I just think that scene's really intimate, and just the rest of the movie hinges on how well you believe as an audience member that these two people have found each other, and I think everything comes together in that scene to kind of really sell this connection. I really like that. And also it's one of the less upsetting and distressing moments in the movie. Kind of could just focus on something slightly pleasant for 2 minutes.
I got this favourite shot, and that's just because I just like the absurdity of it, where Nicolas Cage just walks off the pool into the pool and sort of sits down and starts drinking a beer, and then she goes in and like kisses him. It's just such a fucking weird shot, but I really like it, and I think it should have been on a poster because it's like, he wants alcohol more than air, and she is like just sex.
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't an accident either. It's like, I'm just gonna walk into the pool right now.
So I like that shot. I thought that was really good. Also, it's kind of a strange shot. It's an incredibly weird, I suppose, finale. But how it's even shot is when he's dying and she sleeps with him, which is like the first time, and it's just how it's kind of shot from above and. Like she's straddling him and he is clearly dying, and that is just kind of, it's such a strange thing because I feel like this is kind of weird and this is kind of gross, but at the same time this is really nice and this is kind of romantic in a sort of strange perverted way. Yeah, and it's sad. It's really sad. It's just very weird emotions for a sex scene at the end.
I think for me, my favorite shot is actually a funny one, a comedy moment in this film. There's a brilliant shot where you see Sarah come out of a cab to the gates of her building, and you see the landlords behind the gate complaining that Ben has been here for ages, but you don't know where he is. Then the camera just tilts down to reveal Ben sleeping on the ground with a whiskey bottle in his hand, using his suitcase as a pillow. It made me laugh out loud. I was like, that's a brilliant shot.
Yeah, that was a funny one.
And it's great acting as well, not to reveal that Nick is literally just right there, when he's literally just right in front of those actors,
Yeah, that's a great shot.
That was a great moment. And a much needed moment of levity. So, probably half the reason why I laughed out loud, to be honest. But,
probably very, very unexpected.
So, Culture Bucket, what is your score for directing?
I think I respect the performance you got out of Nicolas Cage, sort of the film as a whole, but there's too many bits and pieces that I found irritating, such as using her wardrobe tests as films and stuff as part of the movie. I'm gonna go 6.5 on directing.
Oh, really? Crikey. Was that quite distracting for you then, really, when you were watching it? Certainly in the beginning.
I found that distracting, and I found the overbearing jazz score to be distracting, and I have to take away a little bit for using Sting in your movie.
All right, not a fan of Sting. Okay.
I don't need that much Sting.
All right.
You've been overstung.
What should we go for, Boaz?
Yeah, I'm not going to be that harsh on it.
I mean, I like jazz.
I like jazz. Well, to a degree. It depends. It depends what kind of jazz.
Yeah.
A little jazz.
I don't dislike jazz. I just don't know if it completely added to the movie, the amount of it.
All right.
No, I quite liked it. I'm kind of tempted to go nearer 8.
Yeah, should we go solid 8?
Yeah, maybe, or 7.9 or something.
I agree with the fact that those wardrobe tests were irritating in the beginning, but the film kind of moves past that quite quickly. And also, this film is shot on 16mm, I believe, and it looks great at times. Yeah, I think solid 8, shall we go?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Screenplay, then. The film doesn't shy away from the fact that Nick Cage, his character Ben Sanderson, is an alcoholic. He's, shopping only for alcohol. His friends don't want to see him anymore in that restaurant. Then he tries to hit on this girl at a bar, and Ben is all very sleazy, and it's very uncomfortable to watch. Then the barman intervenes, and you think Ben is either going to kick off or he's just going to leave. But no, he carries on hitting on the girl and says, "I really wish you'd come home with me. You're so cute, and I'm really good in bed, too, believe me. You smell great, and you look great, and your hair is great. No? Okay." It's very uncomfortable to watch, but in a pitiful way. It's the start of this downfall trajectory for him. And then the girl says, "Maybe you shouldn't drink so much. Maybe I shouldn't breathe so much." It's just, it's just a really oh God, this guy's just a mess, and it just gets messier from there. So I thought it was quite a nice kind of opening scene that actually shows how kind of pathetic he is, and it's only the first scene where you see that patheticness.
That's true. I like that very opening scene as well. I quite like the way he juxtaposes, I guess, the scene of Nicolas Cage clearly just on his own, drinking for himself in the supermarket, piling the trolley full of booze, which is something we immediately as a society would be like, that's not okay, don't do that. No. But then it immediately cuts to 4 friends clinking glasses together, drinking socially, which is the acceptable end of drinking, and just kind of going from one to the other in that kind of quick cut. I thought it was quite a good way to kind of open the movie and almost emphasise even more how dark Nicolas Cage's character is.
Do you remember that scene where he went to the bank to, I think, to cash off a check or something? And they needed his signature. He's literally just cannot... And he makes up some bullshit excuse, like he had brain surgery or some bollocks. And he's like...
brain surgery.
Yeah, listen, I just need to go, get my tablets or whatever. And he goes to the pub, straight to the bar. The guy's like, it's the morning, Even the bartender is incredibly concerned. He's like, listen, this is bad. This is very wrong. I thought it was funny. He goes, just give me the drink and then you can 85 me. He goes, I can 85 you whenever I fucking want. He's like, don't you dare, but he gives him the drink anyway. And then I thought it was funny because in the line for the the bank. He immediately comes back, signs his name. He's all like proud, and he's making an ass of himself, like recording. If you were covered in alcohol, I'd lick all the alcohol off of you. I'd lick it off your breasts, off your pussy. It's like, what the fuck?
Which happens at the end of the film, doesn't it? His fantasy comes true eventually.
Yeah, because she takes a bottle of his alcohol, like Jack Daniels or whatever, and like pours it over her face and breasts.
Yeah.
And then he starts like kissing and sucking. And then falls on a fucking table because he's useless, and they get kicked out. Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. Whoops. Yeah, I thought that was funny. Whoops. And she's like, "You're bleeding," and he's like, "What does he say? Like, I'm a pine cone or something."
Oh, I'm a prickly pear.
That's the one. I'm a prickly pear. Yeah, that's it. I'm a prickly pear. Yeah.
I like when the scene where he checks into that motel and he looks at the sign above the thing, and what's it called? It's called The Whole Year Inn, and it changes to say The Whole You're In.
Yeah.
I'd have almost liked more touches like that throughout the movie, actually, because I thought that was quite. It was funny and clever, and also really emphasising the destructive thing he's on, where he can't even look at a simple sign without considering his own mortality.
Yeah, I like one of my favourite lines actually in the film, which I think is one of the only lines I really remembered because I had watched this film years ago, but it's always stuck in my head, even thinking about it, is where they have a meal together and she's questioning him about, why do you drink, And he's like, I can't really remember. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she says something like, do you see drinking as a way to die? And he goes, well, if dying is a way to drink.
Oh, yeah.
It's such an absurd line.
Oh, yeah.
But I quite like it,
That's my favourite line.
Yeah, I think that's my favourite line. It's like, well, if dying is a way to drink. It's just, that's how fucking far gone he is.
Does he say, I can't remember if I'm drinking because my wife left me or if my wife left me because I was drinking? Which is another quite good
that was a good one.
turn of phrase.
There's a really interesting scene where Sarah helps Ben and allows him to stay in her house and sleep on the sofa. Sarah really wants him to stay because she's really alone, but Ben says basically that he's going to be a liability with his drinking, and he agrees to stay with her, but he says very seriously, you can never, never ask me to stop drinking. Do you understand? And you can see in Nick Cage's eyes that he's deadly serious and he could become violent. Then Sarah says, I do, I really do. And at that point in the film, they completely understand each other, I feel like, especially Sarah. Like, she's seen men like this before. And you now know that there's no hope for either of them, that they're not even going to try and help each other. And for me, like, the sexiest scene in the film, as they have a nice smooch in that moment, that's genuinely like sexy moment.
But what I found funny about that scene is I kind of almost sort of saw it as almost kind of like a subversion of a wedding, essentially. Like, this is like a sort of wedding ceremony and these were vows. They wouldn't interfere with each other. She's like, I do. And then they kiss. I was like, this is some kind of like meta, like, to me, like wedding ceremony that's kind of the opposite, where you'll have and hold the other one and take care of them. This is, no, we're going to be together, but we're going to stay the fuck out of each other's way. Let harm come to one another. And she's like, I do. And, they kiss. And so I kind of interpreted it sort of like that. It's kind of like an unintentional engagement.
And then from like that point on, everything pretty much is going quite nicely for them, not really having a care in the world until they get to this like desert motel. And you mentioned, you guys, that, they have that kind of weird, when Shu is pouring whiskey over her body, her naked body, and they have this kind of weird sex scene. And then Ben falls over and breaks the glass table. And then Ben goes inside, and the motel owner comes out to clean up, and Sarah is apologizing, and the woman seems very nice. Then all of a sudden she says, we get a lot of screw-ups here. And she basically says, take your shit and leave. And there's been occasions in the film where Ben and Sarah touch a nerve on each other about his drinking or her prostitution. But now one of them has actually said it directly to them, this being Sarah, that you're a screw-up. And you can tell in Elizabeth Shue's face that really hurt. And it's very like passive-aggressive from that woman. It's the first time like that she's kind of been seen kind of thing of like actually who she is. And that's the moment where like their relationship at that point starts to fracture, and Ben is starting to really like deteriorate from the alcohol, and they have like rice for dinner, and Sarah is really starting to fall for Ben and care for Ben and asks Ben to like see a doctor, but Ben doesn't like the idea, obviously, and he just says he'll move to a hotel. And then Sarah is like, and do what? Rot away in a room. And then she can't hold her emotions anymore and just says, fuck you. We're not going to talk about this. Then throws down her chopsticks, and it's like she's gone too far down this road to just abandon this guy now who's already dying, you know. And Sarah is the one that starts to care and begin to hope, which is the start of their downfall in their relationship. Then for Sarah, anything can go wrong, does go wrong, you know, and we literally don't see Ben again until that last scene when he dies. And it's just really interesting when a nerve has been touched from outside of their relationship. It just brings emotion of caring, proper care for each other, and it's just like, nah. And then it all falls apart.
I also thought that talk at the dinner, and then you say like everything kind of goes to shit, and then they sort of separate for a bit. It's kind of interesting because she does care, and I think it's kind of funny that she makes dinner, because I think at this moment on, they've always sort of gone out to eat. You don't see anybody cook food in this film. This is the first cooked meal I think you see. And she's dressed quite nice. It's like quite modestly. It's probably like the only modest dress I think she's in. She kind of reminds me of a housewife. I think she's trying to be a normal couple at this point. And I don't think she's really understood what she agreed to. She didn't agree to be a normal couple. But I think that's what she wants. You know, she wants a proper relationship. And that's just not going to happen.
It's interesting the way that during those last moments, like during that last act of the movie, you sort of leave Nicolas Cage for an extended period of time and just spend some time with Elizabeth Shue and see almost how... And it's almost a bit like you're being shown as an audience that once he dies, this is what she has to go back to. Yeah. It doesn't feel like he's necessarily saved her in any way, but at least by being with him, she's almost been able to distract herself from what her day-to-day is like, which is rough and difficult. And, you know, there is that really horrific rape scene. And it almost, I guess, makes it all the more sadder and upsetting when he does die. And she says in that one of those talking head scenes that she loves him. And it's pretty heartbreaking. Like, it's really upsetting.
Yeah.
In terms of what you were talking about before with that scene where she cooks some white rice, I really like the touch that she eats the rice, but he doesn't. He just, after she's left, he just eats an ice cube with some chopsticks.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think in the entire movie he eats anything.
It's like at that point in the story, he just won't eat food. He just will have alcohol, that's it.
Even when they go for that nice meal together, he's just piling pasta onto his fork and then just dropping it back on the plate and then picking it up again. And he doesn't, I don't think he eats any of it.
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
Interesting lines. Steady as a fucking rock. Excuse my French. Want to have dinner with me? I bring out the best in men that fuck me. That's...
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Quite like, whoa, I think that's the first line she has of Sarah's.
Yeah, it is.
Just 1 second. Great ass.
I like it when he's in that bar talking to that woman and she says, can I stay with you a while? And he goes, you mean move in with me? Isn't that a bit sudden? It's a pretty good line. And then there's an early on bit, I think he's talking to that woman, he says, let's finish these and go back to my apartment on the beach. He screams on the beach.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Some great line readings.
Yeah. Oh, what was it? You know when he gets like headbutted by that guy and he's bleeding all over the place and he goes back home and she's like, what the hell happened to you? You got in a fight, you said you weren't a fighter. And he was like, I was defending a lady's honour. And then she kisses him, and then because it was such a weird scene. She kisses him, oh, you hero, and she says like,
it's all bloody. I'm like, what are you doing?
But she says like, your blood tastes good. Like she's snugging his mouth, and he's just covered in blood. It was such a fucking like. It is pretty weird. There are a bunch of weirdos. I mean, they really sell it.
But before he gets headbutted, it's funny what he says to the pissed off boyfriend. He says, I'm sorry, but you see, she and I have decided to spend a few hours together in a motel. And after that, caviar. Headbutt. But he says it in like an English accent, which is quite funny.
Yeah, it's a great line, really.
There's some poignant ones as well. You're some kind of antidote that mixes with the liquor and keeps me in balance, but that won't last forever. I quite like that one.
That's pretty good.
There's a lot of lines that kind of basically describe the whole film. I think all of our favourite lines are you saying your drinking is a way to kill yourself? or killing myself is a way to drink. I think that's just a brilliant line.
I think it's already been mentioned, but I think my ultimate favourite line is "You can't ever ask me to stop drinking." I think it's such a short line, but it ultimately, that's the entire movie in one single line in about 6 words. I just really like the kind of economy of that line. It's great.
And it's quite a scary moment as well from Nick Cage. It's like, you definitely believe him there. He's deadly serious in that moment.
It's almost like the mask slips for a second, because there's so much of the film leading up to that point is he's been talking in an English accent and being silly and kind of being outrageous. And there's that one moment where it's almost like it all falls away.
Yeah, being a big goofball, you know.
Yeah, and it all falls away, and this is the truth of the matter. You can't ask me to stop drinking. And it's, heartbreaking.
Culture Bucket, score for screenplay. What are you going for?
I think I liked the screenplay quite a bit more than the directing. I'm going to go higher on this. I'm going to go 8.8.
Oh, nice.
Wow, that's pretty good. So what do you reckon then, Matt? Martin, Mark, Mitchell?
My name's not Mark Spector, right?
It's Stephen Grant.
I think 8 as well.
Yeah. How about 8.5?
Yeah, okay. Acting... I mean, we've pretty much talked a lot about the acting already. I mean, this comes with this film, certainly when you talk about all of the different categories. Any, like, specific acting moments we like?
I think dancing down the supermarket aisle in that opening scene is a pretty spectacular bit of performance from Nick Cage. And then just the way he's able to... Because then after that, you see him in the restaurant with Richard Lewis and those 3 other people. And he just is a sweaty, awful mess.
I know.
Like, obviously makeup's doing quite a lot of work, but he's selling it pretty hard straight away, which is great.
Because everyone else looks quite clean and well, smart.
Yeah.
It definitely...
He looks like he's homeless or something.
He definitely looks horrible. But there's a scene in his office before he gets to Las Vegas, and his secretary comes in and says he has a meeting, and he starts to bounce up and down in his chair, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? And it's almost as if he's imagining having sex with his secretary and then decides to get up and have a dance with her. Like, it's very bizarre, but very entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
I feel like we've talked about this a lot in this podcast, where is this moment kind of just like a moment where the director's like,
just do your own thing, man.
These are the lines, but like, just do what you feel this character should do, you know, with not much direction. And I feel like that scene is definitely one of those.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a really interesting acting moment from Julian Sands, who plays Yuri the pimp. He gets Sarah to like stand with him and turns her around right next to the wall and like bangs her head lightly against the wall, and you're expecting like quite a horrible scene to happen. Then Yuri says, "They're talking about me. Do you hear?" And Julian Sands is quite menacing, but in a very quiet way. But when Sarah moves away, he just sits down and hangs his head like he's quite scared. It's a very like subtle performance from being quite scary looking to scared without doing much at all, which I found quite an amazing little scene. That, and I guess it's a shame that he's not in the film more, but at the same time, I quite like the fact that Sarah is kind of freed from the pimp, and you kind of don't have any like lingering things happening later on in the film.
Yeah, you definitely need to. I think he needs to go out of the film at that point, doesn't he, to allow the rest of it to sort of play out.
Yeah, otherwise he'd just be in the way like all the time. You think he's going to allow, his number one hooker to have a relationship? That's not going to happen. The film would mainly be them arguing, really. So I think he does have to sort of disappear. But I think he was pretty good in the fact that he's trying to be intimidating and social to clients, but he is obviously very terrified because he owes money and he's going to die, you know. And I liked his performance when she came back from, Nicolas Cage's thing, and she only has that money because she overslept. And he is fucking furious. Like, he slaps her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and she kind of, what was it? She gets a knife and then turns around and gives it to him. So, cut her. And he kind of like does a sort of a mini sort of freak out, like he's not sure what the hell to do, and I like that when he's like,
well, she bends over and like lifts her skirt up, doesn't she?
But he's like, I don't know what the fuck to do, and he just like storms off. But you can see he's kind of like in this sort of bind of he likes her. I think he does really like her, like, and may think that they're a couple when that's not really the case. He's an abuser. is angry and is also terrified that he's going to probably die the next day. So I thought his brief screen time, I think at least he did a pretty good job, even though he was in it for like a minute or so.
The last scene is like the least sexiest sex scene I've ever seen, I think, in cinema.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right before like Ben dies as well, and Nick Cage is extraordinary in that last scene where he's basically a zombie and does these like jolts of movement at times, and he plays it like he's constantly on the edge of death at any moment. Right before he dies, he turns his head. He gives such a haunting look. Just before he does it, it's quite scary actually, and then his hand just stops moving. It's weirdly such a heartbreaking end for a character that you just feel sorry for the whole time, and it's just it's kind of like half lit on its face, and it's like, oh god, that's not nice.
Yeah, it kind of made me sad that I thought of a terrible pun like when he died, because he died with her on top of him, so he died after he had shagged her. So I was like, he came and went. And but that would have really spoiled the scene.
What if Elizabeth Shue just said, "Oh, he came and went"?
yeah. He came and went. They were like, "Oh shit, this film sucks now. Burn it." I thought it was actually kind of funny the like last sex scene, because it was just kind of really it was sad, and it's just kind of. Yeah, it was very strange. And I like the little touches, like they're keeping that consistent. Like she goes in to kiss him. It's essentially going to be like their last kiss. And he purses his lips, and the first thing he does is grab the bottle. He needs to swig of that shit first. That's more important. He needs to take a swig of his whiskey first. Yeah,
it's just the way, like how slowly he brings the bottle to his mouth.
Yeah,
he's in slow motion now, and it's just like, oh my God, this is so sad.
Yeah.
What did you like about that scene, George? That very last one?
Similar to what you've been saying in terms of the way he sells that sort of death and the way he sells his reliance on alcohol right up until the very last moment is pretty incredible. And then I think Elizabeth Shue, and it's true of a lot of scenes in the movie, they wouldn't work as well if he was there being brilliant and his scene partner wasn't also bringing it. And she, she really does. She's pretty. You can tell how affected she is. Like you said, she doesn't just stand up at the end and go, "Well, that's the end of that," and walk away. She's obviously pretty affected by it all.
No, yeah, this is deeply affecting her as it's happening, and exactly. And you can definitely see it in her face. This is heartbreaking. This is the end of an era.
She's definitely the most emotional in the film, I think, in that scene.
Yeah. The most impressive moment of his performance is where he destroys that blackjack table in the casino.
Yeah.
He looks like he's almost going to injure himself at times during that moment.
Favourite performance, George?
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage, Bowers?
Yeah, Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, mine, Nicolas Cage, for sure.
Yeah. But, as you just said about like Elizabeth Shue, again, I don't think he is great, but if he didn't have somebody who was also good to fall back on, some of these scenes wouldn't work. So she is really good as well. I just think he is just amazing, but she is really good as well. I'm not going to take that away from her.
Pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
Acting score, George. What are you going for?
I think Nicolas Cage is one of my all-time favourite actors, and this is sort of one of his all-time greatest performances. So I'm going to have to go pretty high. I'm going to go 9.7.
Wow, that's pretty damn good.
I don't think we can really argue with that score. I think I've never seen Nicolas Cage this good in a movie.
I think he definitely brings like his AAA game, his A++ game,
Yeah.
He does a very, very good job.
Yeah.
Just the way he goes from like mildly, I mean, he's drunk all the way through the film.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a scene where he's sober at all.
No.
Yeah.
And he just plays all these different states so well.
He's like depressive drunk, shaky drunk.
And they're so very like clearly defined.
Yeah, unstable drunk, angry drunk, jolly drunk.
What should we go with then, Boaz, for acting?
I think it deserves 9s. I probably won't go like, as high as that.
No, not.
Do you know 9.2?
9.4, should we go?
Yeah, okay, 9.4.
Yeah, because I think there are some moments from Elizabeth Shue which aren't terribly convincing in the beginning. I mean, it's great, but not on Nicolas Cage's level, I don't think. But, yeah. Right, let's add up the scores then for Leaving Las Vegas. Leaving Las Vegas gets 50.9.
Good score?
It's that directing score, George. You really brought it down. Quite harsh.
Sorry. I know. I just found I did find certain parts of that directing to be close to unbearable, unfortunately.
Right, Culture Bucket podcast. What is your pick for Nicolas Cage films?
In sort of the absolute opposite end of what Nicolas Cage is capable of providing us, I've gone with the 1996 classic Michael Bay film, The Rock.
Were there any other picks in contention that didn't make the cut? Or was it always just The Rock?
There were other possibilities. I thought about Con Air or Face Off, but I felt like if you're going to go action, for me, this is the one. Or I briefly considered being like, aren't I intelligent and going for something like Pig or The Colour Out of Space to get a little bit indie. But yeah, I went with The Rock.
Yeah, I do like Face Off. I'm very fond of that one. I just love the like the John Travolta revival in the 90s of lots of villain characters, Broken Arrow and stuff. And yeah, he's great in that film as well.
Oh yeah. Wow.
So what happens in The Rock?
Well, we open on a montage of military men being important and visiting graves and looking sad. And very quickly, we're introduced to Brigadier General Francis X. Hummel.
That's the most military name ever made.
No, exactly,
Francis X. Hummel. 20,000 confirmed kills.
20,000?
No, I made that shit up. But don't they say like he fought from Vietnam through Desert Storm to like every fucking...
He didn't nuke anyone.
He is a one-man army.
He was running Black Ops into China before you were...
Yeah. Yeah.
He's angry. He's deeply annoyed at the American military for leaving his men dying in the sand outside of Iraq, etc. So he's stolen some chemical weapons and decided to take the Rock, or Alcatraz, as it's known, the prison on the island outside San Francisco, hostage. And he's threatening to kill millions of San Franciscans if the United States government doesn't pay the families of the deceased soldiers
$1 million. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're then introduced to FBI Special Agent Dr. Stanley Goodspeed, played by Nicolas Cage, a chemical weapons super freak who is brought in to try and help them work out how to deal with this nasty chemical gas. But then they realise they're also going to need someone to get them into the Rock, who knows it by hand, and only one man can do it. And it is, of course, SAS Captain John Patrick Mason, played by Sean Connery, who... is then brought into the picture, and the team is put in place, led by Michael Biehn. There's just endless amazing character actors coming out of the walls in this movie to go in, take the rackets, take out the guidance chips, deal with the problem, take out Ed Harris, and save the day, which all plays out in fairly high-octane, exciting fashion, which is what you want from a Michael Bay movie.
So what do we make of this one, then?
I'm disappointed there's not a alien robot in sight. No, actually, it is much better for that. To be honest with you, it's much better.
Yes, very much.
But yeah, no, it's a great deal of fun, and I have watched this quite a few times back in the day, and rewatching it, I picked up a lot more things. Yeah, I had a good time. with it.
Yeah, I would say this is probably Michael Bay's best film. To be fair, he's made a lot of dross and a lot of just boring CGI mashups.
Yeah,
a la Transformers. Yes, the first one is pretty good, but all the others are like,
they're a bit crap. Yeah,
a bit rubbish. I think I read recently, actually, while he's promoting Ambulance, which actually does look pretty good, to be fair, which could be either his second best film. But
it could be
interesting to see that one. But he said that Steven Spielberg actually contacted him and said, "You need to stop making Transformers films. Make something else."
It's like he's an addict.
Yeah,
it's like an intervention. Just stop it, man. Stop it. It's been 7. This is too many.
Where does this one sit with you then, George?
Pretty high up. I mean, I have to be honest. When he's not directing giant robots that turn into cars, I'm generally enjoy his movies. You've got this. You've got Bad Boys, Boys 2.
Yeah, Bad Boys are pretty cool.
Armageddon, and then I have seen Ambulance, and I had a very good time with Ambulance. I thought that was a fun one. Some of the best kind of angry yelling that Jake Gyllenhaal's ever done in his career. So yeah, and The Rock definitely. Like when I was a kid, I was obsessed with James Bond, and I remember one day my mum was like, "Oh, me and your dad watched a pretty good film last night. Sean Connery was in it, and they went and and they'd recorded it onto VHS, so I watched it. And I think that was the moment when I discovered Nicolas Cage as well, and I just thought it was the greatest. I remember going to school the next day and being like, "Oh my god, everyone! I watched this incredible movie, and James Bond, and this there, and they were swimming underwater and pulling around in fire, and it was good. I love this movie. It's up there with Jurassic Park and Jaws as probably some of the films I've seen the most in my life.
Really?
So, I was happy to watch it again.
Yeah, I think certainly for me, it's one of those films, if it kind of just comes on TV, you kind of have to watch it all the way through. It's that good. Well, it's that satisfying a watch, I would say, that you have to watch it all the way through.
Yeah.
So directing then, like the opening action scene in the Naval Weapons Depot is really nice and slick, even when they accidentally drop one of the VX-2 rockets. It seems to be like quite slickly done. And I think my favorite part is when the guy gets trapped behind the door and like warts and boils come over his face, as they leave that one shot as he drops to the ground. It was nice and gruesome there.
Yeah. His skin is just bubbling away.
It's like a horror movie.
It's pretty horrible.
Yeah, really gruesome stuff.
I remember that actually used to freak me out when I was a kid, and I watched this and I was like, holy shit. This shit is serious.
I think as a kid, I was like, "Oh, that looks awesome."
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's done. It was done really slick, and that's how you get introduced to Hummel. I love also the introduction to Nicolas Cage, and when they've got a bomb that they need to disable.
Oh yeah,
and that immediately gets really tense as well.
I mean, what is that? That's so confusing.
Yeah, I think it's completely unrelated to the plot. I think it's just to make him like, oh yeah, he's a badass too, because it's a terrorist who's never mentioned, or you don't even know much about what's actually going on. They've sent a bomb, and he's disabling it. It sprays acid that starts to melt through their suits, and he's got to disable this thing before it blows up the office and stuff.
Yeah, it's eating through my suit, man.
Yeah, I remember that.
For me, it's not like that tense because it's really funny as well. I think it's more funny than tense. Well, certainly the fact that you've watched it a million times, like I haven't, well, like all of us have, because the guy's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You want to stick this needle in my chest?" But the pace is like really fast, like great handheld cameras with long lenses, lots of like great lines, but that's all there is just a fast pace, because all of a sudden Stanley just cuts the wire of the bomb and it's over. And it's like there was no like progression of danger for me. It just ends. And it's like Michael Bay turns the tension up to 11 straight away rather than slowly turning the dial kind of thing, And as I said, it kind of just the comedy comes through a lot more than the tension does, certainly in multiple rewatches.
No, I think you're right that it is mainly funny, but I kind of enjoy that about it. I like having sort of this totally bizarre, because I don't imagine it bears much resemblance to anything that would happen in a genuine FBI lab in reality.
No. Be very boring, I think.
Yeah, that shit's happening every other week.
The tension that they try to bring in is like, oh, the sprinklers aren't working, blocking the sprinklers, and it's like, would that happen? Would there be a block in the sprinklers in this extremely advanced chemical weapons lab? Yeah, no, I think you're right that ultimately it is more funny than tense. And I think I've just realised that in that scene, the guy on the outside of the glass cage, kind of leading them through it, is Xander Berkeley, who plays the taxi driver at the end of Leaving Las Vegas. So there's a little link between the two movies.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Oh, shit. Huh.
And also the guy, I'm not sure if the same the same actor, but he says to the trainee guy, "Inject your heart and then defuse the bomb." And I'm like, excuse me, what? Surely you want to defuse the bomb first and then inject yourself, because you're going to have a fuck off needle in your heart, and it's probably going to be very painful and not be able to do your job. But there we go. I thought that was like, I think you got that the wrong way around, dude.
It's not like a massively necessary scene, but I do think it kind of does tie into the end, because you've introduced the needle, you've introduced that he's a great bomb diffuser, and then ultimately that comes in handy at the end.
I love how excessive the car chase scene is in San Francisco, where Mason is driving a Humvee and literally hitting anything in sight. He starts by driving through the obligatory fruit and veg stalls, a water truck, then a power line pole where the cuts don't match up, where the Humvee literally nearly comes to a stop, then suddenly is driving smoothly again. There's like a tram crash, which is crazy. It crashes into a car, then blows up vertically, like 20 feet up in the air, of course. And of course, the most deadly character in the film survives. But the scene starts off really well with this nice, like, fixed cameras on the vehicles. There's some really nice ones on the Ferrari, which is really nice. But then, like, the camera shaking just gets more increased so much that the scene becomes incomprehensible at times, incoherent. Like, the cameraman is like having a wrestling match with the camera.
He's having a fucking seizure. Yeah. I think he's having a fit. He's having an epileptic fit. But yeah, no, on a rewatch of the chase scene, I think in my head, I think that's actually my one major criticism with the action of the film. I think most of the action scenes are fine. And I think the chase is pretty good. But on a rewatch of it, so in my mind, I remember the chase being better than this. And it's because, and I think you've got your hand on it. When it's like, literally the camera is in front of their faces, just doing that. I was getting so nauseous. I was like, "Holy shit!" This is like, this is a bit much.
Keep it steady for one shot at least.
Yeah, it was making me quite ill. So I think he should have just calmed down a little and let just keep it steady. I kind of get why he probably did that. It's like to make it frenetic and everything is chaos. But after a minute of that, I was getting a bit like, just slow down. Slow down.
Calm down, Michael.
Yeah, calm the fuck down, man. Calm the fuck down. But luckily, none of the other action scenes, I think, did that. So
no.
I'll be honest, I kind of love the car chase. If I have a criticism of the car chase, it is that, and this probably comes more under screenplay, it's not irrelevant to anything else in the movie. Like, you could cut that car chase out of the film entirely.
Yeah.
And it would be the same. It would be exactly the same film. But it is ridiculously frenetic and mad.
Yeah, it's just there to like establish a relationship with, well, when he gets to the end, establish a relationship with his daughter. Yeah. Mason and his daughter, that's it really. But yeah, you could literally do a little escape scene so he meets his daughter, but no, they have a massive car chase.
I think it's also to show, like, Mason is a dangerous man. Who's a dangerous man.
Who the hell was that?
This is what happens when he tries to escape. Master escape artist. But yeah, I also think it was just a way to just spend a couple of extra millions. Like, it had a few millions for the budget. Just 5 more million. What should we do? Michael, we're just going to blow this fucking street up. Just everything. Just every car, tram, everything.
We're going to get a Ferrari. And you know what? We're going to make it yellow.
Yeah. I love that line where he fucking, the car gets pancaked by the tram. And that guy was like... like, dude, your car got fucked up, and he's like, it wasn't mine, and then just nicks his bike or something.
Yeah, he's like, neither is this bike.
yeah.
It does have I think Michael Bay's favourite trademark camera move is in that sequence as well. Just after Nicolas Cage destroys the Ferrari, he sort of stands up through the bottom of the frame, and the camera's below him, kind of spinning around him.
Yeah.
That exact same movement is in Bad Boys 2 and a bunch of his other movies as well. He kind of loves it for whatever reason.
Yeah. I think I remember the bit in Bad Boys 2, where he's like getting off the phone from the hostage guy, and he's like, shit just got real, and the camera's like below. So he loves to do that, and I was getting I was getting flashbacks to Bad Boys 2. I think it is a cool camera move, and it is basically a Michael Bay signature. He's going to use that at some point. But it does make like his main character look like a giant. It's like, whoa, he's fucking enormous,
Look at this biochemist.
Yeah, he's a god among men.
That's a really good point, actually, that like 20 minutes after this scene, or even 5 minutes after this scene, they start being like, you're going to have to go to the Rock with everyone else, Nicolas Cage. And he's like, but I'm just a biochemist. I can't do action.
Yeah.
It's like, we've just watched you destroy San Francisco.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, you went on a high-speed chase. You blew up so many cars. You stole a motorbike.
And you look super cool, man. And now you don't want to do it again. What? And then after that, like a lot of the action scenes are a tad samey, I guess, with the gun battles. Still really satisfying.
I think my favourite one has just got to be the ambush scene, which is the first big gun battle. That is fucking awesome. And I think the reason why it's so good is not so much the gunplay, where you have scenes later where there's better gunplay and there's better choreography, and there's even better one-liners and deaths and shit. But it's just the ramping up of the tension. It's just, they're shouting at each other. It's crescendoing, it's cutting back and forth, and it's so goddamn tense. And then a brick drops, and they just fucking waste each other. So it's like the build-up is amazing. It's just done so well. That scene specifically, it reminds me of, Enemy of the State. The ending of that, where they were all about to kill each other, and it gets really tense, and you think, oh, it's going to calm down, and then it just turns into a bloodbath. It just really reminded me of that.
I quite liked how the confrontation scene is directed, where Captain Darrow and Captain Fry are standing up to Hummel fairly near the end and demanding their money. And it's very much directed like, the Reservoir Dogs moment, where everyone's got guns in their hands on each other. But what I thought was impressive is the fact that all the cutting choices to all the different characters, close-ups, including Mason and Goodspeed, who are hiding behind the wall waiting, all felt just right. Like the rhythm and the tension never broke for me at any moment. Then when the gunfight breaks out, probably one of the best ones, I would say, just with a great mix of slow-mo. And when Hummel dies, it's quite sad with him slowly falling to the ground. And as he's like sat down with flashes of gunshots cut together with that, I thought that was quite a nice, good death scene for Hummel. Just the way all the cutting choices and editing choices there.
Absolutely.
Was really well done, I thought. So, favourite shots or scenes, people?
There's so many to pick from. I think my favourite scene overall is and it includes, I think, my favourite shot is I guess you'd call it an interrogation scene when they first take John Mason out of prison and they put him in that room and they send Nicolas Cage in to interrogate him. I think that scene is so funny, and it's the first time these two characters who we're going to spend the rest of the film with meet, and it just sets up immediately like the interplay these two are going to have. And that bit where he smashes the quarter and then uses it to
that was cool,
break a hole in the window and just smashes through it, which I don't think that would work, but he does it. And just looks through and is like, "Whoa, Mac, you piece of shit." I adore that shot of him looking through the window. It's great.
I also like his planning of escape, because I wasn't sure what the fuck he was doing. Like he pulls a string out of the shower. I'm like, what on earth is going on? I think that was extra shower curtains or something, shower curtain threads or something. I don't know what the hell that was.
Yeah.
And he pulls that out and then hides it under his sleeves, and he's getting, a shave, and you see like under his arms, he's like tying them up. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. And then I love that, where it's just satisfying handshake on it with Lomac, and he ties the rope around his hand and throws him off the building. And I like they've got like a bird's eye view shot of that when he throws him, so you can see just how high they are. I thought that was really cool. I would say though my favorite scene is still, well, as I said, like the first confrontation where the SEAL team gets massacred. I just think that's my favorite scene.
I kind of found it really difficult to choose my favorite, to be honest. I think shot-wise, some of my favorites are actually near the end, where Nicolas Cage has got the green flares, and he's, some of those wide shots where he's waving the flares. And
that's a really good one.
The tension and suspense is really well done in that, actually. Where they literally abort the what's it called? The
thermite.
Crap. And obviously one of the jets, accidentally lets one go, and that was quite a nice end there.
Yeah, that was really tense.
Directing score, Boaz, what should we go for The Rock? 7.3? Or is that too harsh?
No, I don't think so. So maybe like 7.6?
7.5.
7.5. All right.
I would probably say this is Michael Bay's best film, but I think not necessarily because of his direction. It's because of Nick Cage and Sean Connery are just awesome in this film, He's able to get out really good performances from them.
And as I said, like, we were talking before this, I do think this is a pretty damn amazing action screenplay, and I think whoever wrote this needs some credit. I think the script, is pretty damn good, and a lot of the lines are just really iconic and really memorable. So I think he did pick a very good screenplay to adapt.
Also, you just don't see films like this anymore. If a film just doesn't have a superhero in it and the world is not at stake and it's an action film, you're just not going to make it. People are not going to make it. And it's just, the 90s was just really just a really nice era of action where you've got situations like this where the terrorists are involved and like they're going to blow up a bridge or, San Francisco or whatever. And, a military team has to assemble and save the day. And we just don't get films like this anymore. So certainly our generation treasures these films a lot more, I would say. It's quite satisfying to rewatch these.
I definitely agree with what you were saying about in terms of like we just don't get movies like this anymore.
Yeah.
Like even his newest film, Ambulance, doesn't quite have the same feeling as The Rock. I don't think anything quite does. But there are issues. The big issue that I have that every time I watch this movie, I'm like, what? This doesn't work. And I think it is because of direction. Is at the end when he has that one last little green pearl from the thing, and he puts it in his pocket, and then just has a big bust up, big fight, gets thrown through a window. The way that Bay is framing the action there, it's really crunchy.
Yeah, that should have smashed to fucking pieces.
Should have, he should have. Everyone should have died.
You don't know. He might have lots of padding in that pocket.
Yeah.
Possibly. There is that, but there's also a bit where he's just got it in his hand and gets flung over a railing. So anyway, I feel like there are kind of bits where he sort of loses sight of what he's meant to be doing. But I do have a lot of time for it. So I'm going to go slightly higher. I'm going to go 7.9.
All right, cool. Nice.
And even when like he smashes the orb in his mouth, I'm like, surely more people are going to be affected right now. and die, but.
Yeah, he said like a block. Everyone within a block would die if an orb got smashed, and the guy's spraying it across the entire room.
That's true. I want to touch on some of the action stuff. I do think that is pretty good as well. Where like Mason said, he likes to set some people on fire. I think that shit is crazy. Well, obviously, Michael Bay, it's got to be fire and explosions and stuff. But where they have that fight scene, and he's like, "Don't shoot at the rocket! For God's sake, don't shoot at the rocket!" And he's like, "Any more advice, Professor?" And he like shoots this, I don't know, like these chemicals or something that's next to the guy, and the fucking whole room goes up, and he's on fire and stuff. And I like how he shoots the I don't know what the hell it is, like a radiator, and crushes his head. And then Nicolas Cage is like, "That is the most horrifying thing I've ever seen."
The foot thing, is that normal? Is the foot thing normal? What do you want me to do? Kill him again?
I could kill him again.
Screenplay then. If there's a way to make me love a character right from the off, then it's in this film. Nicolas Cage as Stanley Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick?
He might be in it somewhere. You don't know.
Is Sean Connery playing Hitchcock? Or?
Nicolas Cage as Stanley Goodspeed receives a parcel in his office, and it's a Beatle LP, and his colleague asks, "Why would you spend $600 on that when you can spend $13 on a CD?" And Stanley says, "First of all, it's because I'm a Beatle maniac, and second, these sound better." And god damn it, he's right. Vinyls are the best way to listen to music. Arguably the best opening lines of a character on screen. Yes, I just love the fact that he says vinyls sound amazing. And I love listening to music on vinyls. Yes, please. Thank you very much. Love that.
That's because you're a dinosaur.
And a lot of people collect vinyls, man.
Yeah.
George, you seemed like a very cultured music guy. You collect vinyls, right?
I do collect vinyls, but...
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my god, I'm the odd one out here.
Come on.
But crucially, I do not own a vinyl player.
Digital all the way.
Vinyl sounds better. Stanley Goodspeed says they sound better.
Okay.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. But yeah, I just do think there's a lot of really great dialogue in this. I also love, when he comes back to his wife and he's talking about the day he had in the office, there's a terrorist attack, parcel bomb. And he was like, I don't even understand why people have children. I think it's negligent, in this evil world of ours. And she's like, I'm pregnant. And he's like, he's like,
what?
He's like, are you sure? What? Are you sure? 3 weeks. He's like, and he goes, did you mean all that stuff that you said? That was before. He goes, that was 7 seconds ago. Well, a lot has happened since then. Yeah, it's quite funny.
Yeah.
I think why this film is so satisfying to watch and really, really interesting is because of Ed Harris's character, I think. Because I find like the opening credits the opening credit scene's really interesting because you see this very like proud, somber US military funeral, and Ed Harris's character Hummel is at the heart of it, and you think, oh, this is obviously our hero of the story. Because tonally, the way we watch films, you would assume you would start off with the hero of the story as he's at a funeral, especially. And because it's Ed Harris, you know, he doesn't really play villains, really.
To be honest, he is kind of the hero of his own story. He thinks he's the hero.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's not doing it with any kind of bad intent, which is strange because he's a terrorist, but, you know.
But when he starts talking to his wife's grave, he says, there's something I've got to do, Barb, something I couldn't do while you were here. And then you realize, oh, he's going to be a very naughty soldier. What do we make of, like, Ed Harris's plan in this, and certainly in terms of military politics?
It's pretty great the way that you sort of, as the film rolls along, you come to realize that he was sort of arrogant enough and sure enough of his own skills that he thought he was going to be able to do this entire plan without anyone getting injured. So as far as he was concerned, there was no damage to be done. And you consistently see moments where, like for example, that the first shootout in the shower room, he really doesn't want that. He's desperate for that not to turn into a shootout because he doesn't want anyone to get hurt by it. And it eventually comes to a head in that brilliant scene you had earlier where they're all pointing the guns at each other and it all sort of falls apart for him. And it's kind of sad. And for like a 90s action film to have a villain that is not sort of sneering and laughing and not a villainous kind of James Bond villain. Yeah, like I said, one of the things that makes this movie so satisfying to watch.
Yeah, but I do think he is a really interesting character because, I mean, we're touching on it. Like, he didn't want to kill anybody. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. No. He seriously doesn't want to do any damage, and he doesn't want to panic the civilians and stuff. It's just things kind of escalate beyond his control. And, and especially his men, it's essentially the captain and the major, like, they're the real bad guys. Like, they're very hot-headed and they're greedy and they're violent. They're kind of, I suppose, what you would sort of expect him to be, but that's not what he is. He just wants justice to be done. He's like, listen, these people, they died in secret missions for the government, and you lie about their service record. They're not buried in military graves, and their widows don't get paid, for their stellar service. Like, this is wrong. And he's obviously been trying to handle this, diplomatically. Even when he says that he wants 100 million, he even says, I want it from the, what was it, Red Ocean Fund. And the guy says, what the hell is that? He says, it's an illegal black ops fund. So it's not even the US, it's not even public money. It's not even it's like this secret illegal fund from selling weapons to terrorist groups in other countries. So, I mean, this is, like, to be honest, like, the US government looks fucking evil in this movie. And he sort of has a point. It's just, some of his men are crazy, and it kind of escalates.
Yeah. I think the point where things kind of start to go south with Hummel's character is when, obviously, during that shootout, and he's literally shouting, ceasefire, ceasefire. And obviously, he just does not want this to happen. From this point, you're really not sure if Hummel is going to go through with his plan. And, and you're like, is he actually going to... I think in a lot of films like this, where you think are they going to turn into a hero? At this point, you're like, oh, is he going to team up with Mason and Goodspeed? But obviously that doesn't happen. He tries his utmost to stick to the plan. Obviously, there does come a point where he's like, no, we've gone too far. We need to abort everything and just leave the island and get out of Dodge, But obviously then the two psychopath captains, Fry and Darrow, just take over and just...
You mean Candyman?
Yes. Yes. Fry and the Candyman try and destroy San Francisco with green gummy balls. Anyway.
No, but I quite like, my favorite character moment is actually when he does press the button. Because at that moment you think, okay, no, he's gone full supervillain. The timer has passed. The US government has no intention of negotiating with him or giving him any money. They're going to blow up the island. They're just stalling for time. You've got Mason and Nicolas Cage's character, they're still trying to win the day. And he presses the fucking button. And you're like, oh, shit. He's been convinced by his men.
Yeah.
Like, listen, don't give him any more time. You've got to show force. I love you've got the camera tracker, and it's going to hit, like, a stadium. And then he just goes on the keyboard last minute, and he changes its direction. And everybody, and all of his men, like, just completely lose faith in him. And he is winding down. He's like, I think we made the wrong call here. And then, he gets mutinied. But so I think he started this thinking he was going to be the hero. It kind of turned out he was the villain of the story. But then he still tried to be the hero in the end, so I don't think there was, So I think he's an interesting character is what I'm saying.
I like how the film sneaks in from under your nose these two psychopaths captains that join the General Hummel's unit that are the true villains, and I like how as the film progresses that more of his team turn against him and actually want to fire the rockets. There's a scene where the US government are asking for more money, for more time, and Captain Fry and Captain Darrow are trying to convince Hummel to launch. Meanwhile, Goodspeed is trying to convince Mason to stay on the island because when Mason looked into Hummel's eyes, he could tell he could never do it. Yes, a little ridiculous, and he doesn't want to die on the rock. That's why he wants to leave because he just feels like the situation is hopeless. But unfortunately, Mason changes his mind very quickly and saves Goodspeed, which is a little unsatisfying. But it's just a little nice scene that contrasts with Hummel and the psycho captains. Hummel agrees to the launch with the rockets, launch the rocket, but ends up aborting the rocket into the ocean. And from this point, Mason was right, and Hummel no longer becomes the villain in this story. It's become those two crazy captains.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about it that way, but there is a nice contrast to that scene. So, the villain is essentially trying to be convinced to be more villainous, and the hero is trying to be convinced to stay on the island and complete the mission.
And save the day,
And Mason is not interested in really getting involved, and that guy's not really... Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting scene. It's a juxtaposition. I quite like also the save because that guy's going to shoot him, and Nicolas Cage is like, paper or plastic, and the guy's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And he's going to blow his head off, and he's like, "There's going to be nothing left of us. So you can either be in a paper bag or a plastic bag. You've got to just give up and let me deactivate those rockets. Just let me, let's deactivate some rocket." The guy's going to shoot him, and he's like, "Just give me the gun." And I just like how Mason just goes back, snaps his neck, and then hands him the gun, and he's like, from behind, "You made the right choice." I think he thought he was still talking to the fucking Marine who had the gun.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
I just thought that was really funny. It was just really clever done. Yeah, cleverly done.
But I guess for me, the scenes with Hummel were better in those senses because I think Mason basically turns round, changes his mind very quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my only gripe with that. But I kind of like, as we said, the symmetry there.
Yeah, would you kind of left it a couple more minutes and then, he saves the day a little later?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, maybe have Nick really try and do it on his own and sort of...
bumble around unsuccessfully.
Be somewhat successful and then fail and then him come maybe a little later.
Funny lines. What we got, people? There are shitloads.
Yeah, there's so many.
This has stuck in my mind for years. Goodspeed and Mason get caught, and that guy goes, "I'll take pleasure in gutting you, boy." And then it just cuts to Cage in the prison cell, just go, "I'll take pleasure in gutting you, boy." And then that same scene when Cage is like, "So you got out of you rolled under that thing, you swam out the third, you did all of this. How in the name of Zeus's butthole did you get out of your cell? I only ask because in our current situation, it could prove to be useful information. Maybe." And then the cell door opens.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's great. That is a fucking great. That was a great scene.
"I'm fed up of saving your ass. I'm amazed you've got past puberty."
Yeah. I like Mason and Stanley talking, and he's like, they're going to the prison morgue to disable the first bomb. He's like, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" He's like, "I'll do my best." "Your best? Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen." It's like, Carla was the prom queen. Really? It was like... Yeah.
"Oh yeah, pigtails are very naughty. Naughty. I've been in jail longer than Nelson Mandela, so maybe you want me to run for president."
Yeah.
What does the line, "You're just an amaretto cream with peach sorbet persuasion" mean?
I have no idea.
I don't remember that. That's weird.
Just after that bit where he's talking about the pigtails, he says that to his girlfriend when they're celebrating at the start. It is nonsense.
I think he probably made that up. It's like, Nick, stick to the script.
Yeah.
I like when they're talking under Alcatraz and And Stanley says to Mason, he goes, "Are you enjoying this?" And he goes, "Well, it's certainly more enjoyable than my average day, reading philosophy and avoiding gang rape in the washroom. Though it's less of a problem these days. Maybe I'm losing my sex appeal." Like that. I kind of like that. He's like, maybe I'm not that attractive.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Well, I'm Stanley Goodspeed, but of course you are.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah. I'm part of the federal. I'm the FB. I'm Stanley Goodspeed. Why, of course you are.
We're gonna crash. Save yourselves. Damn, this sucks. Where's that son of a bitch at? I'm gonna hunt him down. That motherfucker ain't safe nowhere. I'm like, what the hell? Not even Samuel Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson wouldn't dare to say that in a movie. I'm like, that guy is seriously dangerous.
Yeah.
Covering as a tram driver.
Yeah. What was it? I really do like the who the fuck is he called? Captain Darrow. I wish he was in it more. Like the guy that plays Candyman. I thought when he kind of has an outburst, I thought that was fucking amazing. And I would have liked more of that. Where he's like, there's no fucking money. The mission's over. And he goes, "You're talking to a general soldier, maintain just discipline." And he's like, "I'm not a soldier, Major. The day we took hostages, we became mercenaries. And mercenaries get paid. I want my fucking money!" Like shouting. So that was really tense. I fucking love that scene.
Let's talk music. Do you like the Elton John song Rocket Man?
Yeah.
He's like, "I don't like soft ass shit."
I like the, oh, you don't. Oh, you don't.
Well, I only bring it up because it's you. You're the Rocket Man.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Well, you're the Rocket Man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you don't know. Oh, okay. It's like, how do you like how that shit works?
Yeah, that was brilliant.
I was very satisfied when that guy was killed by the rocket. I mean, you do not diss Elton John. Right?
Yeah.
Elton John is a legend to me. Kill that motherfucker now.
No, exactly. Elton John is wonderful. Let's not.
Yeah, exactly. Kill that motherfucker. Send his ass to the yellow brick road.
Yeah, we won't have a word said against Elton John. Thank you very much. One of my favourite little bits that we get from Sean Connery is when they're underneath they're in the Civil War fort and they've just been flung out of this minecart and Sean Connery's hanging upside down by his foot attached to a bit of rope and Goodspeed's like, "Mason, you all right?" It's like, "Yes, perfectly okay, you fucking idiot."
Yeah, that was brilliant. I like that.
My stomach's doing hula hoops around my ass. That's what I go on.
Yeah, I like that line. I'm going to start using that every time I'm pretty sick.
Oh, yeah, there's a great one after the foot thing. And he's like, "Listen, I'm just a biochemist. And most of the time I work in a glass jar and lead a very uneventful life. I drive a Volvo, a beige one. But what I'm dealing with here is one of the most deadliest substances the earth has ever known. So what do you say? And you cut me some frickin' slack."
Yeah. I also like when he's reporting back to HQ. He's like, the SEAL team is dead. They're fucking dead. And he goes, "It's just me and Mason." And he's leaving. And he goes, "Well, stop him." And he's like, "But sir, he has a gun." He goes, "What do you have, a fucking pea shooter?" He's like, stop him. And then I like, because he threatens him with the gun, and then Mason takes the gun off of his hand, and he's like, he's got all the guns now, sir. They're like, "Fuck it." Yeah.
Where's my wooden one gone? God damn it.
Oh, do you remember the barber after he runs into the elevator and he's being chased by the cop? Yeah. And the barber is like, "Okay, I don't know anything. I never saw you throw that gentleman off a balcony. All I care about is, are you happy with the haircut?"
All I care about, are you happy with your haircut?
Yeah. You do a much better gay barber than I do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then after the car chase, when Goodspeed catches up with Mason, he says, "What do we say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole!" But I think my favourite is from Sean Connery. And he's just about to get his hair cut, and he says, "I can't cut anyone's balls off with a trimmer now, can I?" That made me laugh out loud.
That was funny.
Oh, that was so funny.
Oh, what was it? I do actually like how they set up the threat, because I thought that was good. And, when they're in the conference room and he's, like, negotiating with the government guys. And then afterwards, one of the guys says, "What can this stuff do? VX gas. And, what would happen if it goes off?" And he goes, what are the casualties like?" And that general, he says, "I don't know, 70 or 80. He goes, "That's not so bad. 1,000? I like that. You're like, shit. It's like, dude, just finish your fucking sentence first. It's like, yeah, 70,000 people would die.
So, screenplay score, Boaz, what should we go for The Rock?
Yeah, I mean, I actually really, really like this screenplay. And I know it's like, well, actually, you know, I'm not going to, I think it's a fun film. There's a lot of funny, as we've just you can just keep going. There's a lot of funny dialogue. There's a lot of badass lines. I like the plot. I think it's interesting. I don't think, you know, you were saying you don't really have these sort of team up fun sort of terrorist movies anymore. It's kind of Neo Bond stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great version of that. And even a kind of subversion of that, because, you know, I think the villains are quite complex and the situation is pretty complex. I do think it's a pretty damn good script. You know, so yeah, I think it's funny and I think there's some clever stuff in it.
One thing I forgot to mention, actually, I might have deleted the note, but is that I feel like the first hour is just set up.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
We only really get to The Rock like a good hour into the film. Like, you're introduced to Hummel. He takes the VX gas. He takes the hostages held hostage on The Rock. You're introduced to Goodspeed and Mason. You have the car chase. They figure out a plan. Half the SEAL team gets slaughtered, and then we're a good hour in until we really get to the heart of the story, where you get to like all the kind of really interesting conflict stuff with Hummel and his sergeant. So,
the good stuff we've been talking about, really. Yeah.
In that respect, I mean, you could have cut out a lot of this certainly at the start, but it's still really fun to watch.
Yeah. Okay. I think you could have done some shaving, but I think what's in there is pretty good. But yeah, you could, yeah. Okay, I see your argument. You could have shaved, maybe 20, spots here and there, maybe 20 minutes, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think still quite enjoyable.
But I still think it's excellent just for Hummel's character. You know, I think that's just a really fascinating character. Yeah. So 7.9, 7.7. And also the lines are amazing.
I think the lines are amazing. And I think you've got to, sprinkle that in there as well. Like, I would go maybe an 8.3.
I think that's too high.
You think that's too high? Okay, how about just 7?
Just an 8 then.
Oh yeah, okay, 8.
A culture bucket. What are you going for?
I think because of how many lines of this movie just rattle around in my head on a daily basis, I'm going to go a little bit higher. But your criticisms are fair. I checked the time codes and like Alcatraz is taken over about 15 minutes in, which is pretty good pace, pretty snappy. Then Connery and Cage are kind of teamed up about 35 minutes in, and again, that's fairly quick. And then there's 25 minutes of them sort of running around and crashing cars and stuff. And then, so there's definitely like a bit of trimming you could do there. But other than that, yeah, I really like the screenplay, so I'm going to go 8.4.
Cool. Acting then. We kind of talked a little bit about this, but I still love the performance from Nick Cage and Sean Connery in that first meeting they have in the interrogation room, where Nick is like acting so bumbly and trying to be confident with Sean, but failing miserably. Sean easily convinces Nick to take his handcuffs off and then says, if he'll just sign where it says, and then someone just says, signature. And Nick's brilliant way just says, yes, signature, and then just taps the contract several times. It's just brilliant comedy acting from Nicolas Cage there. And obviously countering that, Sean just being amazing with his presence, just because he's Sean Connery, So.
When we first see Nicolas Cage at home after he survived that baby bomb, and he's just sort of naked in a chair playing guitar, and the way he's just like plucking at the guitar in his frustrations, it's pretty entertaining. Yeah, that whole scene, you mentioned it earlier, but the bit where he's like, well, gosh, kind of what's happened since then. He sells it pretty well. And it ends up not being super... The fact that he's got a girlfriend who's in San Francisco and might potentially die ends up not really being too important to the film. But I think they give it just enough time at the start to kind of keep it one of those things that keeps you tense.
Yeah, I like Ed Harris, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think his scenes are pretty damn good. So I like after the slaughter in the toilets, and he kind of lifts up the camera and he's like, God damn you. God damn what you've made me do, You can see he's very pissed off. Like,
Ed Harris can't not give a huge performance. Yeah.
I love the acting from Ed Harris when he's finally decides to like launch one of the rockets into the Bay Area, and he looks so conflicted, like, shall I launch or not, but not showing too much emotion in front of his men, while like Tony Todd and Gregory Spalder, who play the Psycho Who captains, like they look almost like they've got the shakes, and they have got these like crazy eyes, like they're just so desperate to launch the rocket. And then throughout the rocket launch, Harris has this brilliant like steely stillness to him, like he's already preparing for the conflict to come from his own men. And I feel like he's made up his mind that he's going to like ditch and abort the rocket already. And you get all that just from Ed Harris. You know, he's fantastic in that scene of just literally hardly doing anything. It's just that one expression of just like, shit, it's going to hit the fan soon. I need to really prepare. And it's just all on his face there. Again, just really great comedy acting from Nicolas Cage. When he's in the helicopter traveling to the rock, he's like waving his knees around, like messing up the air tank. Connery has to like fix the air tank, and when they're all like shouting "good to go," he shouts "good to go," but he's like still wearing his snorkel, and he takes it out and says it again. You know, just great comedy acting from Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of. I'm a big fan generally of John Spencer, who plays the FBI director Womack.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the scenes where he's been thrown over the balcony and he's hanging off the balcony. There's something really funny about the way he's being pulled up, and he's just like screaming and yelling, and he's furious. And when they finally catch up to Sean Connery later, just as he's met with his daughter, Womack just runs up and calls him a cocksucker, which is quite a funny way to put a cap on that.
Yeah, that was funny. I also like how kind of he was really desperate and anxious to see Mason's dead body. Like he's kind of, where the fuck is that son of a bitch? You know, where is he? Where is that son of a bitch? And he's like, he's dead. You know, he goes, well, where's the body? He's like, it's vaporized. Vaporized? Bodies can do that? You know,
Like, yeah, sure.
He like so wants to see this fucker's corpse. You know, just make sure he's dead.
Favorite performances, people? What we going for?
I think I might go Ed Harris, but I do like Nicolas Cage in there.
Yeah.
I think he's very high. But yeah, I think I will go Ed Harris, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ed Harris is pretty amazing in the movie, as everyone is. But I think I'm going to go with Sean Connery. There's something about his just sort of bringing that persona he had with Bond in the 60s and bringing it into the 90s and kind of using that in this film is I'm a big fan of it.
Have you ever heard that kind of fan theory that his name, John Mason, is like actually a code name and that this is actually a Bond sequel?
No.
Oh, come on. I really like that.
No.
I love that idea.
I fucking love that idea.
No.
No, come on. I love that idea.
No.
Like, think about it. He went under a pseudonym. No.
Not correct. Yes, I am thinking about it.
He went under a pseudonym.
He clearly says he is a soldier from the SAS. James Bond is not from the SAS. He is a naval commander. He's from the Navy.
Ah, screw you. You've ruined it. You've ruined it.
Yes, I have.
You've ruined my damn theory. Damn you.
Theory debunked. Nope.
He moved to the SAS.
But can we believe what he tells us, really?
Yeah, exactly. You can't trust anything. It's definitely Bond. There we go. He's Bond's twin brother who joined the SAS. There we go. See, it's clear. Yeah.
That makes no sense, but all right. But yeah, I think you're right, George. Like, Sean Connery is like amazing in this.
He's very good.
I think this definitely probably is his best performance in his later career, certainly in the 90s, 80s, I would say. Certainly in action films, especially. My favorite performance is Ed Harris. I think he just has a really rich character to play with, Ed Harris.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even speak about this because I do agree with you. I think they're both the best actors in this film, Ed Harris and Sean Connery. But like their scene together, I wish that could have been longer. But that was an interesting scene. We didn't talk about that, where they're essentially philosophizing over what the hell they're doing. You know, when he catches him, he just kind of surrenders, and he goes, "You've got a stellar combat career," and he's talking about, the government has fucked you over. But he's like, this isn't combat. This is lunacy. And I think you're a fucking idiot. You know, and he's like, well, be that as it may. And I just really like that. So he has the balls to just say that right to his face. You're a fucking idiot.
And Ed Harris says something about patriotism, and then Mason says patriotism is the virtue of the vicious, according to Oscar Wilde. Hummel hits Mason, then he says, thank you for making my point.
Yeah, because I think Ed Harris Oh man, who's the guy with the lightning? One of the founding fathers.
Jefferson.
Was it Jefferson?
Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, I think it might have been Benjamin Franklin or Jefferson, but he said something like the tree of patriotism needs to be watered with the blood of tyrants, and I think that's what he says.
Yeah, he quotes Jefferson, I think.
Yeah, Ed Harris says that. That's his philosophy.
So acting score, Boaz, what should we go for The Rock?
I don't know. You fucking decide on this one, and I'll try and agree with you or disagree with you. Yeah.
Okay. 7.6. I think Nick Cage is great, but it's nothing. I think compared to like what he does in Leaving Las Vegas, he's extraordinary in that.
Oh yeah. He is extraordinary.
I would say this is like classic Nick Cage and classic Sean Connery, whereas for Ed Harris, like this is something really interesting for him as well. So I would say maybe 7.6, 7.8.
Yeah. Okay. 7.8. No, 7.9. 7.9. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. That's fair. George, what are you going for?
I agree. I think you're right that like Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery in this movie are doing things they could sort of do in their sleep. And then Ed Harris is... and Ed Harris doesn't normally do films like this, does he? So I think he probably chose to take on this role because it is such a textured kind of Hollywood bad guy, which is unusual. And I think because... I feel like this movie is filled with great character actors. Like John Spencer, who plays Womack, is good. You've got David Morse, William Forsythe, Michael Biehn, John C. McGinley from Scrubs is just pops up in the background.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
Tony Todd. I think for that, having so many great character actors really elevates the movie and is one of the reasons why it's so good. I think so. I'm gonna go 8.1.
Embracing the decimals, I like it.
Yeah.
Right, let's add up the scores then for The Rock. The Rock gets a very respectable 47.8. So Leaving Las Vegas wins this one with 50.9, which I don't think is any shame on The Rock at all, losing to Leaving Las Vegas. It's quite a very different films, but I think probably Leaving Las Vegas does deserve it slightly. Definitely. Next episode as a little film called Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. You heard of that one? You heard of MCU? I'm not.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about, really.
It's not huge on my radar.
Is it just big with the kids or something? I don't know. Who's directing it?
Some bloke called Sam Raimi.
No, I don't know. No, I never heard of that guy. Yeah, hopefully he goes far after this. Maybe this will make his career.
Hope so. We're
clearly joking. We know who Sam Raimi is and Marvel. So anybody, don't text us or message us.
I think they get the joke, Boaz. It's fine. So next episode we'll be doing MCU sequels and we'll be having guests again, hopefully, with the Genre Geeks podcast. So that'll be very exciting to listen to. George from the Culture Bucket podcast, you have been amazing. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Been a pleasure.
Certainly a shame that Alex couldn't be here. Say hello from us.
I will. Where
is she at the moment? Did you say she went to Italy or something?
No, she lives in Italy.
Ciao. Say ciao to her then.
Will do. Yeah. We'll say ciao.
Ciao.
But hopefully you guys can meet her sooner rather than later. Maybe pop up on our podcast if you fancy.
Love to.
What's your socials, Instagrams and things? Where can we find you and your podcast?
Please do come and find us and please find our podcast. We would love to have some of your listeners join us. Our Instagram is where we're most active on there, and you can find links there to our podcast. So please come find us on there. Come and join us. Come and say hi. We'd love to say hello to your listeners. All
right, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, George.
This has been great. Hope it hasn't been too painful spending time with us. But really enjoyed it.
That's been wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Boaz. Bye-bye. You can go back to the rock, I guess.
Back to Alcatraz. Yeah.
Under your rock. Go back under your rock. Bye-bye.
You're between the rock and a hard place.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off.